Welcome, everybody, to Drive Through Sports with Adam and Paul. Adam Freeman coming to you from my prison cell here upstairs at Shea Freeman here in Ackworth, Georgia. Paul Brees is in Brentwood, Tennessee. Well, I'll explain my background here in just a moment. We've got a lot to get to tonight on tonight's episode. What's going on, Brees?
Man, it was a long, dreary Monday up here. I mean, it rained a lot and was cold, and it's one of those things. If it's going to be this cold, you may as well snow, but it never happened.
Hey, no snow days anymore, big boy. Sorry. It'll take an asynchronous day.
That's right.
It'll be asynchronous for everybody. You can learn anywhere. Yeah, we had bad weather last night. Like, we have two rocking chairs. Well, you saw the rocking chairs that are out front of our house.
Yeah.
Blew them both over, and they're pretty stout. I mean, blew them both over. And I was sleeping in the extra bedroom because of certain things that have transpired, which we'll get into later. The rain was coming from this side and was pounding this outside wall. It was so loud in here, and I had Rosie in here with me because I didn't want her to keep Leslie awake, and she was fidgeting around, so I didn't sleep, but like maybe 2 hours last night.
Yeah,
and I was literally sleepwalking today at work, but anyway, so. Hey, never too tired to do an episode of Drive Through Sports ever. So that gets us to tonight. And we tried to do it last night, Brees, and we had a Zoom meltdown. I think everybody and their mom must have been on Zoom, and it just shut down on us. You said I was frozen. I say you were frozen, and then it did something it had never done before, and it just closed the program out. So hopefully that won't happen tonight. But you see what we got on tap. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. I think the official bowl matchups came out, so we can talk about that as well. But the first thing, Gus Malzahn out at Auburn. And, we mentioned it last night, and we're talking about, what does Auburn want? What did they expect? Where do they think they should be? Okay, they're 6-4 in a very strange season where you played 10 conference games. I don't know what their fan base expects. Do they expect them to beat Alabama every other year or something like that? I mean, it seems like their fan base is a little bit out over their skis. What do you think?
I think you're exactly right. Now, you probably have to add 3 more non-conference wins in there, and maybe a loss taken away. Maybe they're 9-3. This year, and maybe we're talking something different. I don't know. I don't know if Auburn just said, hey, if we're not fighting for the SEC West this year, we're going to go in a different direction before the season started. It was unfortunate for Gus Malzahn. Listen, this guy's not going to cry over spilt milk, right? I mean, he's taking $21.45 million with him out the door.
Yeah.
This guy is not in any hurry to get back into coaching unless he wants to, but man, I think me and you could figure out something to do with 21 million immediately.
Oh, I think definitely. I think FanDuel will be involved probably at some point. But Malzahn, he's not hurting. I mean, come on. He's going to land on his feet somewhere. I mean, we all know there's going to be a carousel of coaching changes coming up here in the off season. Auburn, obviously, in Auburn, I got a little insider info that it could be Mario Cristobal from Oregon coming down to the Plains because he's a really good recruiter, or they're going to back up the truck and get Hugh Freeze back in the SEC. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the Cristobal selection would be the quote unquote safe pick, right?
Yeah.
And the Hugh Freeze is like, we're going to roll the dice and see what happens. Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, you bring Hugh Freeze in, you got Lane Kiffin, you got Mike Leach, you got Nick Saban, you got Jimbo Fisher, who's a friend of nobody's. I mean, there is a lot of hate relationships that would quickly develop just in that small little conference right there. And then you got nice guy, Sam Pittman, is that right, at Arkansas?
Yeah.
And you know what they're going to say to Sam Pittman? You pick up your 0-6 check at the end of the line there, buddy, because you're not going to win against us. But yeah, Auburn, if they're playing it smart, if they want to make the big splash, Hugh Freeze is your guy. I think, what has Oregon done lately, right? I mean,
except play a 4-game season. I mean, honestly, nobody care anything outside of maybe, Texas and Oklahoma. Like nobody cares west of the Mississippi what's going on.
correct.
That's just the way it. Well, LSU, okay, but I mean, that's really that's the landscape of college football right now. So those guys that are out there and winning, they're looking to move east, and they're looking to move, into the southeast, and that's sort of like the mecca of college football. And that's you have achieved something if you are pursued by an SEC school and get that job. So I think that's kind of, Malzahn's out, and we'll see who they get to come in. You got Auburn job open, Vandy job open, Kentucky offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach job open. So there's South Carolina just hired. I believe who they hired. They hired. Oh shoot, I can't think of it.
Oh my goodness.
Can't believe I don't have that on my teleprompter.
Oh, it's Beamer's kid.
Shane Beamer. Yeah. And he had, he's got a good resume. Don't get me wrong. Kirby disciple, so you were talking about the Saban tree. Now you got the Kirby tree, but yeah, SEC coaching carousel, it begins again. And what's funny is now you're talking about guys like Mark Stoops and Nick Saban being like the senior, the guys with the most seniority, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, all right, so let's rotate, and we'll get back to some college football here in just a second. But yesterday, Titans with a big win. Derrick Henry, huge day, averaged almost 10 yards a carry. There's nothing this guy can't do. Tannehill just needs to kind of get the ball down the field, just make a few plays here and there. Threw for like 220 and a touchdown. But you just leave it to Derrick Henry. He carries the mail, and Titans are putting pressure on those teams above them. What should the Titans hope happens tonight in the Baltimore-Cleveland game?
I would think that the matchup situation with the Browns is not favorable. I think they would rather play the Ravens again in a matchup. I think that Baker Mayfield is
he's a problem.
He's a problem for the Titans.
When he's on, and if he's playing a defense like the Titans, that's,
yeah,
very
let me
in a very giving mood.
For the astute Titan fan out there, they've got to understand this, that Derrick Henry is doing all this major yardage without two all-pro tackles, right? That were with
Taylor,
him.
Taylor Lewan gone, right?
Yeah, yep. He's on injured reserve, and Jack Conklin is now with the Cleveland Browns. So your tackles are a guy named Quisenberry, and then what they call the Undertaker, Dennis Kelly, as the right tackle. So, it doesn't really matter. Derrick Henry is being right.
I don't think it does. Henry right, Henry left. That's how that's the recipe for the Titans. And then you got Vrabel pulling the puppet strings and see what he can do. But
let me stop you right there. Let me real quick before I think we change gears. Let's talk about the Titans defense real quick. Two things. One, did you see Vic Beasley and who he plays for now?
Probably the Bengals.
I believe he plays for the Raiders.
How perfect for him.
Yeah. I saw
when I literally told you the day you signed him.
Yeah.
It was garbage.
Yeah, you told us.
I told you guys. And what'd you give him? $12 million?
Yeah, and he's playing for the Raiders. The Raiders are getting him for free now. The funny thing was, I saw a highlight. Vic Beasley lining up on the end and against the Colts yesterday. And as the ball was snapped, the inside receiver just crackbacks him, and he just goes flat to his face.
He folds like a cheap suit, man. I mean, he is looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane to the letter. That is the definition of him. He looks like a beast. He's a kitty cat. It's like he's made of marshmallows. I'm telling you, he takes. I mean, if you watch the tape on him, he takes plays off all the time, all the time, and that led to his. It wasn't injuries that led to his release in Atlanta. I mean, he basically was one of the factors that got Dan Quinn fired in Atlanta, because besides all their other issues that they had, it's because he was such a high draft pick and didn't pan out and wouldn't work. But yeah, I mean, good thing he moved on from him. And another thing I'm really disappointed in with the Titans, I told you your first round draft pick was a good pick. Oh my gosh, could I have ever been more wrong about Isaiah Wilson from Georgia? Just a huge disappointment for you guys. He should be on that offensive line. And
I don't know if you've heard, down where you're at, I don't know if the news gets traveled down there with Titans news or not, but
no, it doesn't. It's all friggin' Falcons all the time.
So Isaiah Wilson's had a couple of DUI incidents. He went over to Tennessee State and was going to jump off a second floor balcony. And, I think the money has gotten him into some bad situations. And I'm shocked that someone like a Taylor Lewan on the offensive line has not just gotten and said, listen, big guy, here's what you need to be doing. You need to surround yourself with good people, get those rest of those people out of your life. Okay. If not, you're going to be broke.
Yeah.
And your career is going to be over.
You're going to be broke, out of the league, and overweight, because once those offensive linemen stop playing, dude, it's a struggle for them to keep that weight off, because their whole life has been about putting on weight, being big. I just want to take a quick detour here, because you remember the other night we had the human interest about the sleeper TV shows, right? That was our big view. We had, over 100 views on that video. Well, come to find out, I just got some information about one of my friends we used to go to church with. He apparently listened to or watched the episode and heard us talking about Yellowstone. And he said, did you know that a Harrison graduate is on the upcoming new season as a regular, not just a guest appearance? And I did not know that. And I asked him who, and he said he's not sure it's public knowledge. So he's withholding that information from me right now. But I also want to take this chance to interject and to also mention something else about a former Harrison graduate, one of my former students, Kate Mcclintock. As of today, December the 14th, 2020, she got the results back. She passed her bar exam. She is officially an attorney. So I told her, and I communicated with her today. I told her I'd make sure I would give her a shout out on our live show tonight, and just let her know that Hoya Nation's proud of her. I'm proud of her. I know her parents are over the moon for her. She went to Georgia, transferred to Alabama, finished there, and then came back and went to Georgia Law School, graduated, just started her first job, I think November the 8th. And now she's official. She's an attorney. So Brees, if we get in any trouble with the FCC, we can give her a ring, and she said she'll represent us free of charge, FOC. So Kate, congratulations. I'm very proud of you, and I know your parents are over the moon. So just everybody, me and Paul here at Drive Through Sports, just want to say congratulations to you on your big accomplishment.
Absolutely.
See, some things Kate do run on hopes and dreams, and only Kate will understand what that means. But we talked last night before we got interrupted about some bowl matchups, Brees. and you had sort of hypothesized about some bowl matchups. Well, Western Kentucky is, I believe, playing Texas State.
So these bowl matchups are now out.
They are out. Yeah, they're officially out. So you can go. We can do a quick bowl matchup rundown. We can even do a bowl pick 'em if you want to early on. We can have another one maybe later on as it gets a little bit closer to time. But hit me with some of the matchups.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I didn't realize they were out. To be honest with you.
Yeah, they were. They have been. They've been sort of scrolling today, at least in the last probably 6
right?
hours, I think. And it's just kind of funny to see. Number one, I always love the names of these bowls that they come up with. My favorite of all time is the Poland Weed Eater Bowl. That's always one of my favorite.
All right. So I did find it. The internet's pretty fast up here.
It is. That's good. Now the first one is actually on December 19th. So that's coming up this weekend.
Yep.
And that is the Frisco Bowl, and that's SMU against UT San Antonio. So I'm not sure if this is the old-fashioned Pony Express anymore. That SMU team, but that seems like a pretty underwhelming matchup. I don't know if you're going to get a ton of views. We may get more views on this episode than the Frisco Bowl down in Frisco, Texas. That may be another one that's played in a high school stadium. I don't know.
That's funny.
Now the one that you were talking about last night was the Myrtle Beach Bowl that is played in a high school stadium, and it's actually going to be North Texas, not Western, against App State. So they're going to get a little beach trip down there. And as soon as I say the Poland Weed Eater Bowl is my favorite, up comes on December 22nd the Idaho Potato Bowl, which is maybe quickly replacing the Poland Weed Eater Bowl. That is going to be Tulane versus Nevada, the Wolf Pack. So I may have to root for the Wolf Pack on that one, Brees. I don't know, just because my daughter's high school, their mascot is the Wolf Pack. So, but anyway, those are the first three. Run us through the next few.
Well, listen, I've got to mention this too. If you're uncertain how the bowl system is working this year, it doesn't really matter how many wins and losses you have.
No, it's all about conference tie-ins.
That's right. Anybody from anywhere can play. So don't be shocked if somehow Vandy sneaks in the back door here. I'd kid with that because it just came to my attention that the Vandy Georgia game that was going to happen this Saturday has been canceled, Adam.
Oh, officially
canceled. So the Georgia AD has gotten a private plane. He's heading up to Nashville, and he's going to tear down Memorial Gym. He's not happy.
It's costing him some money.
He's going to tear down Will Purdue's statue out front.
Oh man! Oh, that is sad.
And so some of these matchups. Hey, and listen, I got to tell you this. The Pac-12 you mentioned very weak when it comes to the whole handling of the COVID season. Washington Huskies are replacing Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. Washington declined. What? We're good. Thanks a lot, everybody. We're not going to play.
Well, before everybody jumps on Washington and gives them a hard time, look, here's the thing. Like, this season is so strange in the way that the conferences, nobody's playing the same number of games, et cetera. Normally it was 6 wins. We got to get to 6 to get a bowl eligible. Bowl eligibility means nothing. But another thing that means nothing is the bowl experience for these players. It means absolutely nothing. And I've talked to Gail Connors, who she had 4 sons that came through Harrison and played. One played at Northern Illinois, played in the Orange Bowl when they played in the Orange Bowl and were 11-1. Another played in the Peach Bowl when they beat. He played for Central Florida when they went undefeated, 13-0. He was on that team. fact, he was the guy that laid out Auburn's quarterback. I don't know if you remember that hit. That was him, Joey Connors.
Okay.
So they've experienced that whole thing. You get the 11 extra practices, but the bowl experience, the trip, the camaraderie, the dinners, the going out, the gift bags, all that stuff. Now it's just like an extended winter camp, and now it's just work and the game in front of nobody. So I understand these teams that are these fringe teams are like, you know what, we're done with 2020. We're not going to do, we're not doing this. It's not worth the 300 grand that we're going to get, or whatever, except for these big bowl games. Now all those we just went through. New Orleans Bowl, Georgia Southern, Louisiana Tech, Montgomery Bowl, Memphis, FAU, Boca Raton Bowl, UCF versus BYU. How far did BYU fall?
Yeah.
They lost to Coastal. They came up a yard short, and now they're in the Boca Raton Bowl. Very interesting. New Mexico Bowl, Houston versus Hawaii. That'll be a high-scoring game. And then the Lending Tree Bowl the day after Christmas. There's your boys, Western versus my alma mater, Georgia State. Don't overlook the Panthers, baby. I tell you something. Last year when we were at the state championship, that was played at Georgia State Stadium. We got to be in the coach's box at Georgia State. We were standing outside. It was cold. It was like 40 degrees and raining, and we're standing kind of in this covered area, but it was outside. And this guy sticks his head around the corner. He goes, "Hey, why don't you guys come in here and watch the game with us?" It was the game, 2 games before ours, because we got down there early. And it was Sean Elliott, the head coach at Georgia State. Didn't know us from anybody, invited us in. They had food, drinks, comfortable place to sit, couches, the whole 9 yards in the coach's box. Super nice. So I got a lot of props for Sean Elliott and his staff. I'm gonna be rooting for him hard against your Toppers. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Got to.
Hey, so my last thing on this college football bowl experience that you're talking about, which is unfortunately not going to happen for all the student athletes. The smaller schools that you're talking about in these bowls, the payout, right, is probably going to save their season from the bowl because they did not get their big money games that where they travel to a Power 5 conference school and get their big payout to kind of cover their season expenses and stuff like that. So
yeah,
they're gonna really depend on this bowl game to do that.
Yeah, well, here's something to think about too. And you've got and I just got a name from my contact about the person to watch for on Yellowstone. Her name is Catherine Kelly, and she graduated with Clark Campbell's daughter, Madison, from Harrison. And so be looking for her on Yellowstone coming up in 2021. But, when Clemson traveled to Florida State and they canceled the game 2 hours before, that cost Clemson $300,000 to make that trip. Okay, so you put that into perspective. You hear about these teams, Alabama paying the Citadel, $500,000 to come play them. You're right. You're absolutely right. That, Western, think about Western. They always play teams like Kentucky. They'll play like maybe 2 SEC teams a year out of their 4 non-conference games. And it's for the payday, right? So, yeah, they miss out on that big time. Plus, they're not getting any of their revenue from their home games because there's not hardly any people there, depending on what state you're in. So I agree. I think it's something definitely to think about. All right, let's go and let's stick with college football. And yes, are we talking about this again? So why are we talking about this again? Because she didn't just kick off this time, Paul. She scored 2 points against your Vols.
You know what? I congratulations to her, but I hate for the Vols to be a answer to a trivia question. And we talked about the conspiracy theorist and both of us to that Vandy the possible Vandy reach out to Tennessee and say, listen, we're going to trot her out there. We're
Don't rush the kicker.
Shot. We're going to give her a shot at the extra point. It would probably be in your best interest for you not to be on ESPN to block this extra point.
Can you imagine if somebody came flying in from the edge and just got it, like blocked it with their chest and they returned it for 2 points? I mean, that would have been really bad.
Yeah.
Wrong.
So
that would have been terrible.
Good for her. Unfortunately, it looks like, right, we just talked about the Georgia Vandy game getting canceled. That probably wraps up her college playing career. She's heading to North Texas, right, to go play soccer as a graduate transfer.
Wow. Well, I mean, good luck to her. I mean, think of this. Think of the stories she's going to have to tell her kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
That's what's incredible to me about this whole story. I mean, wow, my grandmother played in college, or my mom played college football.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, it really, really is. And then she could tell her kids that she kicked 2 extra points against the Vols. Anyway, all right, so we're going to switch sports here real quick because that's what we do here at Drive Through Sports. We're rapid fire. You never know what's coming unless you're watching us on YouTube and you can see the setup here in the table of contents, which we encourage you guys to do. Check out our YouTube channel, Drive Through Sports with Adam and Paul. Also follow us on Twitter at D3 Sports, and check out our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeart, and Spotify. Had a lot of activity on that here as of late. Got a couple new subscribers, Paul, today. Had a couple of my students. I had my screensaver on because I forgot to take it off, and had a couple of them ask me what that was. So I had to explain to them that, yes, this is one of my other ventures that I started during quarantine. And when I told them we had over 100 episodes, they were pretty floored. So yeah, they really were. They're like, oh my gosh. So we may get a few more listens and some shares. You never know. But we encourage you guys that are listening to share it with somebody and to subscribe or follow. If you're doing it on Spotify, you just follow us. If you're doing it on Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, which has some cool interviews on there also. All right. So as we pivot here, the famous 2020 word, we need to pivot here. Guys, college basketball. Listen, Kentucky is as bad as they've been record-wise since 84-85. That's the year after they went to the Final Four with the Twin Towers. That year, Kenny Walker was sophomore. He was basically their whole team. And I want to say they lost 12 games that year. There were 16-12. They made it to and they made it to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament before getting beat by St. John's that year. But this Kentucky team, Paul, I can't watch them. I could drive 8 miles from my house to Lake Point Sports Complex, and I can watch a Tuesday night men's league, and I can see better basketball than I'm seeing when I watch Kentucky play right now. That's just the truth. And it's the turnover of the roster. I mean, I can't get into any of these guys because they're not around long enough. Now, I know the flip side of that coin is, well, when Tubby had guys staying 4 years, you're complaining because they weren't winning titles. Well, when you're one and dones and you've got one title when you should have really probably 4, it's frustrating. So it's just hard. It's just hard to cheer. It's hard to root for them right now. So they're just not fundamentally sound. And as a basketball coach, that should bother you.
I think it's very frustrating for Calipari, right? He's got on one end, you talked about, hey, let's bring in the 5-star guys, the one and done guys. Let's get them in here. Let's mesh them together as fast as we can. And let's see where we end up in March, right?
Yeah, that's the plan every year.
On the flip side, it's like we got a bunch of 5-star guys. We got to mesh them together as fast as we can. They all come from different backgrounds. The ball is mine, and now they have to share it a whole lot.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these, 5-star guys, I as much as I dislike the Cats, I feel Calipari does a pretty good job of, developing these kids, right? But if you are a fan and you want national championships, man, it's just got to be frustrating to no end to say, which way do we go? Do we go the 3-year, 4-year route, guys, and see if we can develop them, and uh, or do we continue on our path and maybe get lucky and down, on one of these classes and you know win a title?
Well, with in 2012, you basically had lightning in a bottle. You had Anthony Davis.
Right.
I don't even know if he averaged double figures that year, but he did so many other things for that team. You had Michael Kidd Gilchrist that was on that team. You had a senior in Darius Miller who had been there. You had guys, a Marcus Teague that was young, but kind of through the course of the season had gotten experience. You had these guys, and they all knew their role. And I think in previous years when Kentucky's been really successful, and they have been the most successful program in the last 12 years or in the last 10 years or 11 years under Calipari in college basketball, most wins. So they're winning games. Now, the expectation, and this is you're expected to win the national championship every year at Kentucky. That may not happen, but that's the expectation. So when these kids come in, it's about the name on the front, not the name on the back, and Calipari getting them to buy into that, especially in a shortened, because they didn't have any like team bonding. Normally they go to the Bahamas and play an exhibition tournament. They didn't have any of that, like all these previous teams have had, and it's showing right now. It is absolutely showing. They didn't show up against Notre Dame in the first half and end up losing by 1, but you're down 22 in the first half. You can't do that and expect to come back. It's going to be tough for them, tough sledding for them in the SEC for sure.
Hey, as we wrap this up with the college basketball thing, you take a team like Kentucky, and then you look over at a Tennessee Vols team, right? Who's the complete opposite of what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, those guys have a lot of 3-4 year guys, and then they sprinkle in a 5-star, 4-star guy, and they mesh them together. And you know what? Rick Barnes has got a recipe that's working, it seems like.
Yeah.
And as more Kentucky fans maybe see this, and it'll be interesting to see how if you're a true diehard Kentucky fan, you look at a program like Tennessee now and say, that's the recipe that I feel like we have the best shot at, because, Kentucky, Duke basketball, it's you better be in the Final Four. It's been a disappointing season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the last 2 national champions, Virginia veterans on that team, Villanova veterans on that team. Experience matters in college basketball. And this being 2020 and the way that's been with the limited amount of contact, the limited amount of just togetherness, you got to be together on the basketball court, or you look like Kentucky has looked, and that's why they're 1-4. All right, we're going to get now to a matchup which is just deep in our love of college basketball, and that's the Battle of the Boulevard, Paul. And a lot of people outside of Nashville, they have no concept of what the Battle of the Boulevard is. We were at the very first Battle of the Boulevard game in 1989. It was in Memorial Gym. It was packed, 18,000 people. Lipscomb against Belmont. Belmont went NCAA first, so the rivalry kind of went away for a little while. But man, when I look back on college, I look at all those Lipscomb Belmont games that I went to, and how much we hated the guys on Belmont. We hated those guys, the Joe Bailings, the Scott Speedies, all those guys. We didn't like them one bit, and we let them have it. But it was a great rivalry, and it continued the other night. Lipscomb on the short end of it this time.
It is so funny how, it comes full circle, right? You know, as we went through college in McQuitty Gym at Lipscomb, I'm going to say Lipscomb College, right? Or David Lipscomb for that matter.
Yeah, it was DLU back then, David Lipscomb University.
Basketball is played in winter months, right? But we would have to show up at McQuitty and we would have to wear short sleeves and shorts because it was so hot in McQuitty that when you left, it was just, it was such a wonderful thing just to go outside.
It was because you're packed in there like sardines because you had to get a seat, you had to get a ticket, you had to be there. And we're talking about, you had to be there for every game. And every game, it didn't matter if they were playing Alderson, Broadus, or whoever. I mean, it was packed because you had to see Hutch, you had to see Henry, you had to see Tracy Sells, Malcolm Montgomery, Mark Campbell, all those guys, Wayne Tomlinson, John Pierce, all those dudes. They were must see. They were must see TV, and they got the place fired up, and it was a great time. From '89 to '93, one of the most dominant college basketball programs in the country as far as wins, and it may have even been the top because they played so many games. Our freshman year, they were 41-5. They played 46 basketball games.
Yeah,
a long season, but. Battle of the Boulevard. I'm just glad it continues. I'm glad they've continued that traditions. Hutch is the AD now, and Scott Corley is the AD over at Belmont. Brentwood guy played at Belmont, so it's good to see him. Boy, he had a wicked 3-point stroke when he played. Boy, he was good. But yeah, it's it's one of those things. I'm glad that tradition is moving forward, and I still have in my classroom. I don't know if you remember this, but our freshman year in the students here, they would give away like the posters, basketball posters. And I can't remember what the theme was. Oh, it was heavy metal, and it had pictures of the guys in the weight room. You remember that? And it had the schedule below it.
Yeah.
I've got that in a poster frame hanging in my room. And every now and then kids will ask me about it, and I'll be like, yeah, these guys were legit, But
real quick, I think you'll be shocked by this, but Darren Henry, who, in small college basketball, anytime we could see a dunk in a game, it was like unreal. It was like the best thing ever. I mean, we saw Lipscomb shoot a lot of 3-point shots, and we saw, Hutch score 50. But when Darren Henry would dunk one, it was like the second coming.
My personal favorite was Tracy Sells.
Tracy Sells, sure.
Oh man, he had absolute hops, and he could get up. They would run that backdoor lob to him or Darren. Either one could get up and get it above the square. You could see it. And that's the thing about it. Like we had watched so many Lipscomb games, we could see it develop, and you could see it coming and anticipate it. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. But yeah, seeing those dunks.
So the point that I bring up Darren Henry is his son actually goes to the school that I, work at. So seeing him around is pretty neat, so.
Dude, we got to get him on the show.
Well, you want it, you got it, man. So Jack, his son is a member of our 6th grade basketball team, and just trying to follow in the footsteps, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Is he built like Darren?
No, he's a little thicker than Darren.
Is he? Okay. Yeah. Okay. He's a post presence. He's a 5. All right. Well, now we get to our last topic tonight, and this is sort of basically an homage to my background here. As you see, is my cell at cell block D here at the maximum security facility here in Ackworth. So Paul, I was at school today, and I received an email from our school nurse that said, hey, one of your students tested positive. I need your seating chart. So when I gave her my seating chart, it just so happened that my desk is 3 feet away from her desk.
Okay.
So after lunch, I go up every now and then. Our principal has a has a refrigerator, like a cooler case, like with a glass front on it, has soft drinks and water and stuff. And she said, hey, if you ever want to drink, just come in my office and get something. So I'm coming up the hallway to her office, and I see that her secretary. I said, "Is she in there?" And I'm about to turn in, and she just puts a stop sign up. She goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on! I just got an email about you." I was like, "Oh no!" And she goes, "The nurse just emailed me, contact tracing. You got to go." And I was like, oh, man. I mean, I knew kind of it was coming, but I basically was told to leave campus immediately because of that. So I said, can you bring me a Coke anyway? So she was nice enough to bring me a Coke out there. And so I luckily had already eaten my lunch. So I took the Coke and headed back to my classroom. And I had to scramble around to get somebody to cover my fourth period class. That was my last period of the day. I had like 8 kids in there that are live. I sent a message to my virtual kids, letting them know, because I was going to be in transit going home when everything started. So I was like, hey, here's an assignment you need to do, blah, blah, blah. So because of that, they have to get someone to sit in my classes with my live kids tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to conduct things virtually as best I can from home, like I did before. So and Wednesday is going to be Wednesday. It's our asynchronous day. We've got meetings on Wednesday, and then we have virtual exams on Thursday and Friday. At least schedule times. I told my kids, look, anytime after midnight on Wednesday, you can take your final up through Friday at 11:30. They'll be online. They'll be accessible. You can do it. So that's what they're planning on doing. That's what I hope they do sooner rather than later, so I can get their grades in, get them posted and everything. But yeah, so that's the reason for my background tonight. I'm like this until December the 19th. I'm sequestered in my man cave. Luckily, I have everything I need. I got 2 guitars, PlayStation 4, YouTube TV, a mixer and a mic. So laptop. So I'm not exactly roughing it like this background would lead you to believe. But I feel fine. Um, but at the same time, being safe, and probably if I start to experience anything, I'll go get a test. But I think it's just a waiting out period right now. So that's life in quarantine, folks.
There you go. Hey, breaking news. It looks like Vanderbilt has hired their football coach.
Oh my goodness.
Got Clark Lee, the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame, is scheduled to be named the Vanderbilt head football coach, or named, excuse me. So Clark Lee, kind of the same, background as Derek Mason, a defensive guy, right?
Yeah.
Former Vanderbilt fullback, local guy, went to MBA high school in Nashville, but it was more of a baseball guy. So what do you think of the hire? I'll let you know what I think of the hire.
I mean, look, it sounds like maybe he was their first guy. Maybe he was their first choice. I don't know, but it sounds to me like, they went and said, hey, let's go get Bobby Johnson. He's been successful in 1AA. Let's see what he can do in the SEC.
Yeah.
That didn't work out. Well, let's go get Derek Mason. He was at Stanford with Shaw. He's probably absorbed some good stuff. Let's see what he can do here. Well, that didn't work out either. So I think now they've come full circle, like you said, and say, look, let's stick with somebody who knows Vanderbilt athletics, who's familiar with how we operate, and is familiar with our culture. And hey, if we can pick up 4 wins out of 12, if we can go 4-8, maybe throw in a 5-6, maybe a bowl game every 4 years, that's our expectation, and we're fine with that. That's what this hire sounds like to me, is just getting somebody that they are comfortable with, that's comfortable and knows Vanderbilt. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Somebody that knows Vanderbilt. But here's the problem. Clark Lee is not the rah-rah guy that's going to get kids to come to Vanderbilt, right? The James Franklin-esque guy that would reel them in. That's not Clark Lee. Clark Lee's defense is ranked 12th in the nation for a reason. He's got players, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to have players at Vandy unless he can provide some kind of assistant coach, find the number one recruiter, and say, hey, come work for me, right?
Well, here's another thing. What's going to happen with the guys that committed to Vandy for next year? Because we have a guy who's committed to Vandy for next year. Our running back is committed to Vandy. He led us in rushing. He scored like 15 touchdowns. He's explosive. I don't know if he's the next Keyshawn Vaughn or anything, but serviceable definitely. But what does he do? Is his commitment, does that stand? Or is he free to look at other, I would imagine unless he signed his letter of intent, which doesn't happen until February, think about that entire recruiting class could flip and go somewhere else.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So
you know what? Good for Vandy. I'm glad they made the safe hire, right? Safe hire.
But another thing, Jimmy cracked corn, and I don't care because Vanderbilt. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, that's just a dub for the Cats that the Cats can get usually. And believe it or not, I didn't realize this, but Tennessee had actually lost to them 3 of the last 4 years. I didn't know that until they won the other day. That's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible. And Tennessee needed a win bad the other day, which they got. So, but all right, folks, that sums it up for tonight's episode of Drive Through Sports with Adam and Paul. Stay tuned for our next episode, which hopefully will be coming to you later this week. So for Paul Brees in Brentwood, Tennessee, Adam Freeman here in Ackworth, Georgia, you've been listening to Drive Through Sports with Adam and Paul.